Not to be all like Pepe Sylvia, here's how Eddie can still be alive, but why not start the new year off right by doubling down? Because I think I figured out a way for Eddie to have just straight up survived that meshes with what we already know about how life forms of the Upside Down function, like mechanically. So thematically and functionally, interconnectedness seems to be the defining aspect of the way that things in the Upside Down function. And this is most clear in things like the psychic hive mind that connect everything from Vecna to the smoke monsters to the plant life to the demo dogs, bats, and gorgons. But it's also true of the way that it works physically. Even if it's not as clear in the show, it is still pretty present. And before I go any further, this is going to get like pretty show typical in terms of like grossness and body horror, so just be aware of that. So what we know is that polywogs, demodogs, and demogorgons are stages in a single creature's life cycle. And what I think is interesting is that the demogorgon attacks in the first season seem to not actually really be about like sustenance or just killing, but actually more for the purpose of reproducing, because both Barb and Will have polywogs put into their systems. Further, I don't think the host being dead is necessary or even the goal when they're targeted. Rather, I think the implantation and gestation more likely depends on a living host that the polywog can drain energy from while it's growing. And again, speaking to interconnectedness, the demogorgons themselves are not the things implanting the polywogs. Rather, it seems that that's where the vines come in, sort of pollinating creatures with polywogs so that the demogorgons can grow. And then my theory is that after the host does die, when the polywog doesn't need it anymore, the body decomposes and sort of sustains the roots. So if we hold this to be true, that immediately killing the victim is not the goal, but instead that the focus is on capture for the slow draining of resources, then it seems to me that it would be beneficial for the attacking agents to have paralytics in their arsenal. The role of the demobats in this ecosystem is less obvious, but if we were to speculate, which we're doing, I would guess that they have a contained life cycle that is like dependent on the vines in the same way as the demogorgons, and that maybe they participate in the demogorgon life cycle by taking down targets for them and then scavenging pieces somewhere along the line between when the polywog hosts are finished hosting, but before the vines have finished metabolizing them. So what I'm saying is, yes, I think that Eddie just passed out from demobat poisoning rather than bleeding out, and that Steve stumbled earlier because the venom was working its way through his system. And I think this meshes really well with how we saw Barb wake up in the Upside Down after she first got attacked, how we saw Hopper get subdued by the vines, and how we saw Will kind of regenerate after the vines got pulled out of his system. I also think this works really well with Vecna as a spider, trapping his victims for slow consumption over time, and that itself works really well for a Shelob parallel for Dustin Gamgee to realize that Frodo isn't dead, but he does need rescuing now. And I don't really think this is what happened in canon. Like, I think the bats were very much trying to kill Eddie and succeeded, but hey, we can use it for a fix.